Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to this month's episode of the Broker Breakdown. A little bit of a switch of plans here. Normally we record in the morning, but Alison has asked me to record at night, so this is a little bit of a different vibe. It's dark out, and you know what? I've instead of starting my morning off with this, I'm ending my day with this. So a little bit different, but it's always nice to kind of get out of your comfort zone. So, but we have a new guest on the podcast this month. Alison has been someone that I've met over the last year with a networking group that we are a part of together in Burlington. And I thought, to have another great person to come on, kind of share her wealth of knowledge and everything real estate. So welcome, Alison.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time. I know you kind of pulled me out of my comfort zone doing this in the evening. So but thanks for taking your time and obviously sharing your wealth of knowledge with everyone and kind of sharing your viewpoints on what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, lots going on right now. Excited for some good conversation tonight, for sure.
So am I. Do you want to kind of share with everyone kind of who you are, what your background is, how you kind of found your way into the world of real estate?
Yeah. So I'm a real estate agent with RM Realty. So we are out of the Oakville Signature Brokerage, Keller Williams. And how did I get into real estate? I was a personal trainer for 10 years. I ran my own business. I managed a few different gyms, managed different personal training departments, ran the sales. And then I ran my own business, decided to go off on my own. So I had a small business. I was a sole proprietor for a few years. We were just talking about small businesses and insurance. And then COVID hit. All my business was in person. I didn't have anything online. That's where I made the bucks. People paid me big bucks to meet them for an hour, a few times a week. And then COVID hit. That shut me down pretty quickly. It was tough to kind of bounce back from that because it was opening, closing. And I'm really passionate about sales and finding, a product for people and a solution and helping them, achieve their goals, whether it be fitness, real estate. So this kind of seemed the best lateral move for me at the time. I've been an active agent for about a year and a half now.
Very good. There's always a nice story to that, right? Like for me, same thing, insurance. Like I went to school. I never thought I was going to be an insurance agent. My buddy one day rang me up and was like, man, you're really good with people and like you're really good at just talking and like just you have a really good charisma. Like you should get into insurance. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I don't know if I want to do that. And he's like, no, like I think it'd be good for you. And then I ended up just one day, I was like, you know what? Fine, I'll give it a chance. And look at that, 7 years later, 8 years later, look at where I am. So
wow,
the stories are always fun to kind of look back and go, that's kind of how this whole journey started.
What were you doing before?
I worked for the CFL actually. So I worked for the Hamilton Tiger Cats right out of university. Well, I was doing both. I was going to Brock and then driving back to Hamilton to work for the CFL, then doing classes basically at night as well. So a lot of juggling around at that point in my life, but again, it taught me a lot, having the job and then having school at the same time. Like I said, a lot going on in my life at that point, but like I said, it taught me a lot of great things. I got to do amazing things with the CFL. When the soccer thing came to Hamilton, that was a big thing of like big passion of mine because I played soccer my whole life. So that was a huge thing I wanted to do. And then, like I said, this kind of opportunity came up and kind of bounced around a few different places. And then, like I said, I'm going on 3 years here now. So it's all come full circle, that's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like everyone in their early 20s, it's like you're either working a job, like long hours, or you have your 9 to 5 and a side hustle. That was kind of how things went. I mean, I feel like it's still a little bit like that, but as you get older, you try to scale it back a bit because you're like, I need more time to rest.
Yeah. That was me with the CFL. Like there'd be days like we do concerts too. So not even just the football, there'd be days of concerts. You're working 12, 14. I remember we did, I think it was Headley I think, was it Headley? I think it was Headley, and we were I remember I didn't leave that stadium till like 3 a.m. It was like insane. We did like Canada rugby. We did a few of those games. Obviously, the Arkells were there. The Arkells were like amazing experience to be a part of that concert. I was actually running the retail tent on field, and I just remember it was just like go 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 go. Like it was just absolutely absurd. Like it was such a crazy like event to be a part of, and it was just like nonstop. Like those gates opened and it was instantly just filled to like the brim with people. So again, great experiences. Like again, like some of the things and some of the people I've met over time there, like I'll never forget. And again, they taught me a lot during that time. And again, I use some of that stuff now in insurance. So again, I can't really say a lot about them because again, they did a lot for me. I spent a lot of my time there. I was there for like 4 seasons, so that basically is 5 years, right? So it's I love what I do now, but that was a great life experience to be a part of basically 2 professional sports teams plus other events that we did at the field as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you say. Like you met a lot of interesting people when you worked that job. It was the same thing for me with personal training. Like I think a part of me going into real estate was some of the people that I did meet while I was personal training were talking about real estate and investing at the time. And I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, I'm going to be a trainer for the rest of my life. I love helping people get healthy and, exceed at life. And they were like, this is the same thing, except it's with real estate. Actually, one of those people, I trained Sarah Larby. I was her first personal trainer. And we always joke because now she's like, I swear, like she probably has something to do with me going into real estate, like subconsciously, it just clicked one day and it was like us for years, her talking about it. And then I actually met you at the Investor and Entrepreneur of Canada networking event. And that's Sarah and Aisha's events. So that's kind of how we got connected as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love those events. They're always great to go to, great people to chat with, a lot of information. And again, like a lot of businesses that are very directly impacted that people really don't see that from the outside of things. Again, like our industry is so connected, which we'll get to in a second, but people really don't see that, right? Like with how real estate's been in the last 3 years, 5 years, things have cooled down on our side too. I have seen more of a pattern for my clients getting into rental properties because they just like go, oh, I can't really pull the trigger right now. I'm buying on my own property, right? So I have seen over the last few years that people are going more into the rental, which isn't an issue. But again, you can see on your side how things have really like skyrocketed, and then we're starting to kind of cool off a little bit. But I have seen on my end that does transition into my world a lot. And same with cars. We saw cars. Even now, we can see cars that can take up to a year to get delivered to clients. And again, that impacts people doing insurance, right? I don't see a whole lot of people buying vehicles right now. It's mostly insurance for vehicles that they currently own. And again, those are trends that impact the auto world and then directly impact my world in insurance, right? So we see those patterns, even if we don't see them as a consumer from kind of behind the curtain, we definitely see those ourselves. So
do you think that with all the car hijackings and theft, do you think that car insurance is going to, like automobile insurance is going to go up?
100%. It's already happening. It's only beginning personally as we get final numbers for 2023, which we will get shortly, probably within the next month or so. You will see those numbers probably go up to about $1.5 billion in just thefts alone. So that's not even any other claim. That's literally just blatant thefts. So that's going to deeply impact the insurance world if it hasn't already, because it already started, because a lot of companies will start raising rates come springtime. And we've already seen a few companies basically have warned us and said, hey, we're having to raise rates again, which is not shocking because 2023 will probably go down as one of the least profitable years of all time for insurance based off what I'm seeing so far. So those those numbers are really, really concerning because I feel like consumers don't really understand, because the insurance, I always say, it's a business. It's a service, but it's a business. And at the end of the day, a business has to be profitable. And the analogy that I always use is like a hospital and healthcare. So, for example, how many times have you been in the hospital or gone to your doctor, let's say in the last 12 months?
0.
Okay, so you've been 0 times. Let's say, for example, your neighbor's been every month. You're paying for that neighbor to go to the hospital or doctor every month.
Right.
That's the same as insurance. If you don't get into accidents, don't get tickets, you're still technically using it, because then your neighbor could get into an accident, and that's your neighbor's still going to see a higher increase, but they have to spread that increase around the whole pool of people that are insured in Ontario. So that's the analogy I like to use, because then people go, oh, I didn't know it was like that's how the system works. It does, because they have to spread that risk across everyone, right? So if more people are claiming, if more people are getting into accidents, then yes, their rates are going to go up significantly more, but across the board, we're going to see increases, because again, profitability gets hit regardless if it's you or if it's your neighbor or if it's your friend. These things it will continue to go up, and I don't see it stabilizing, probably at least for another 2 years. I think we're getting to rock bottom. I don't think we're at rock bottom yet. And then from there, again, I guess the cheesy term, there's only one way, and it's up, right? So from there, we'll have to see how things go, but expect increases, I would say, probably for the next 2 years.
Okay. I mean,
the real
it
estate,
makes sense.
how's we know that's kind of been a fun topic over the last 3 years, and I guess you kind of came in, if you've been in it for a year and a half, you've kind of seen the absolute peaks of it, and now we're kind of seeing maybe a little bit of a cool off, not maybe the cool off people were expecting to have, but definitely seeing a slight cool off, I would say. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I started in an interesting time. I think I started right after COVID, and the market was at its peak at that time. So when I came in, everyone, had all the realtors on the golf course, had the nice
Yeah.
watches, had the most expensive clothes, driving around the most expensive cars. And for me, like I came in, the market was starting to decline. So it's, I mean, I don't really know anything different for me. I didn't have a built business either, right? So I didn't have 2, 3, 4, 10 years behind me. So
Yeah.
I've spent the last year and a half building up my network, and I think, I hear, I hear things like everything's slow, but the rental market seems pretty stable for me. There's a lot of renters out there. Now you have to make sure that you're marketing, how the type of tenant you're trying to attract, right? That will dictate, the amount of rent you can, you can get from them. So there's all that type of stuff, behind the scenes when it comes to renting. And then buying and selling. I mean, I'm working with an investor client right now, and we've been in multiple offer situations. So I don't know, I don't know what it was like when it was really busy in the peak. And all I know is people are like, oh, it's dead now. But then it's like, it seems busy to me. So maybe I'm not the right person to to tell you how the market is, I
Yeah.
guess.
I told you off the podcast, me and my girlfriend had been looking at buying, and I shared the story with you that we were looking at this one house, and they said they were going to hold offers until Wednesday. So I was like keeping an eye on it, kind of seeing, and then literally before we got on, maybe an hour before we got on, 6:30, I got an email saying that they terminated the listing. So it was odd to me, because when we went to the open house on Saturday or Sunday or whenever I went, like they were so eager to get it up, and like from even the realtor was basically saying like, this is going to go quick. like don't expect it to be on here for more than a week, and then all of a sudden I get this terminated, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here, right? So it's weird. Like a lot of the other realtors that I work with and talk to are kind of saying the same thing. It's just a weird time right now. Like it's like the winter seasons. People don't really want to move in the winter, but it's starting to get closer to the spring. We're getting like really oddly high temperatures too. So
Oh, I
people
love
are,
it.
even for my, oh, I do too. It's great. I
Yeah.
hate the winter. You can
Yeah.
probably go back to every episode I've ever recorded, and every time I say I can't stand winter, cold, snow, anything like that, I can't stand. So these temperatures are great, especially Friday and Saturday, 10 degrees, 11 degrees. Perfect. So, but yeah, I just find it just like it's weird. Like from what I was told on the weekend to like 3 days after, I was like, how is this being terminated? Right. So it's odd. I don't really know how to comment on that realistically.
Yeah, and I think you said it before, right? Like I think you mentioned 2023 was the year with the lowest amount of sales for insurance,
Yeah, profitability wise,
profitability
we
wise.
again,
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but based on what I'm seeing, based on the stats that I read the year before, and then what I'm expecting for it to come out this year, I would probably say profitability with multiple companies, and just I would say insurance industry wide, at least in Canada or maybe even Ontario. Again, even if you take it from the outside and go from Canada, look at how many wildfires we had over the summer. That impacts us a lot, right? Not only did we have them in BC, we had them in Quebec, we had them in Ontario, we had them in the East Coast. This has been a big thing recently too, is how many windstorms do we have every summer? Like we didn't have windstorms very often, and now all of a sudden like we have like 3 or 4 every summer, right? So those are bringing claims up. We talked about it already. Thefts alone probably going to be $1.5 billion this year. That's just thefts. That's not even just accidents. That's not anything else. That's just straight thefts. So again, I'm not the I'm not that high up to say, hey, this is what's going to happen. But like I said, just from my kind of research, I do think we are in for a rude awakening. And all companies can really do is they have to adjust. And by adjusting, they probably raise rates. Not probably, they're going to raise rates. And consumers will feel that in the next year or two, right? So, not
Yeah.
what people want to hear, but it's
No.
kind of the reality right now.
Yeah, I mean, sales are down across the board. Like I know I said I don't know any different and I don't, but based off of the stats, like the real estate stats and it's sales that have been down for the last 2 years. So, or the last year and a half. So,
Yeah, I'm looking like I remember I was telling you I was looking at some stats here from some articles, and like everything is down. Like they're saying like the one that I'm reading here is that like for example they interviewed some a single family in Burlington, and they paid about $1.2 million back in 2023, and then now they're trying to sell and they can't even sell for 1.1, right? So they're already taking a massive loss on something literally in less than a year.
yeah.
So we're seeing again, we're kind of seeing the market change. Is it changing enough for people to really get interested? I don't think so. And again, another topic that we can definitely dive into is they didn't change the mortgage rate in January. And I think the next announcement's March and April, back to back months. But again, like what are we really expecting to happen? It's not like we're going to go back to the days of 2%, 1%. We might see a quarter of a point, maybe, if that. So
Yeah.
again, that's not really enticing a whole lot of people to do a whole lot. Like it might entice a few people because it's a little bit of a drop, but it's not like it's like, oh, like we're open for business and we're going to slash rates in half, right? That's not what's happening here.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have been on the sidelines for the last year and a bit. I think it's picked up a little bit in 2024 because people, you're hearing that rates can come down, which means prices are going to go up. So I think the spring is going to be really busy. I think right now people who can, hold a property and with their mortgage rate, yeah, it's a little bit higher, but if they can hold the property and like break even for a little bit, they just want that lower price point for the house sale. But I think, yeah, it's been interesting. Like, I think 2021 or 2020, 2021, like, I mean, those interest rates, like anyone could borrow money. So
Oh yeah, they were just printing money to print money basically at that point. It was an
yeah,
investor's dream.
exactly, right? Or anyone really. Like, there's a lot of families, right, that they purchased, these $1 million homes, like you said, and then now their mortgage is up for renewal. So what's going to happen there, right? They can, like, it's they might have to sell.
Yep.
We're
And then
also seeing some, like, the banks are taking back their people can't afford to pay their mortgages, so the banks are taking the property from them. So I mean, there's hopefully we can get this under control. Inflation is kind of bouncing back and forth between it's going down, it's going up a little bit. They held the rate. So it'll be interesting to see what these next 4 to 6 months, what they do with the rates. And you kind of, like, I just feel for the people out there right now who have those high interest rates and who are maybe, they're freaking out a bit because, if they have to renew, 3 or 4 points higher than what they had got locked into for their fixed rate. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough situation. You have a family, you maybe only have one or two incomes coming in. Like, it's scary. So hopefully we can get this figured out in the next few months, and it's like, what is normal? You want to get back to normal, but you want to get to a
yeah,
place where people can afford to live, right? They can afford to
yeah,
move, they can afford groceries, they can
yeah.
afford to, have a detached home, and be able to have kids and travel, and we'll see.
You did mention that you do a lot of rentals, so obviously you're probably aware of this stuff. But even too, like rental prices are going up. I know it might not seem like a lot, but again, from what I'm reading here, um, they're saying that basically in Hamilton, the year over year, rental prices have gone up 4%. Right, so even a one-bedroom apartment's $1,850 in Hamilton. And I said, I made the joke. It's not really a joke, but it's crazy to think. You take Vancouver, for example, it's $2,700 for a one-bedroom apartment. That's insane. Like, even Toronto is less than that, 2520. So, like, we're even seeing rentals kind of slightly increase here or there. So it's even like, well, I can't afford a mortgage, but can I even afford my rental?
Well, I think you have to take so many things into consideration, right? Like property taxes, they've gone up. If you want to do any renovations, like the cost of living has gone up, cost of, materials have gone up. So I think if you're an investor, it's really tough to be able to run a business because you can't really raise the rent. I think it's like, if anything's built after November 2018, it's not rent controlled. But anything before that, I mean, if I think on average rent can go up only 2.5% each year. You have to give that tenant 90 days notice if you're going to increase the rent. But if you have to renovate that unit, if there was damage done, if your property taxes have gone up, if they were already, paying what is considered like under like the normal rent for that property, it's like that, that owner is going to be in trouble financially. They might have to sell, it's tough to get a tenant out. So 4% isn't a whole lot considering inflation, like how much inflation has gone up, right? Like 15 to 20%. So
Yeah.
rents, to me, like, it's hit or miss. You gotta, like, it really comes down to the numbers, but everything, all the numbers are going up. So rent has to go up as well. And it's tough
Yeah,
because then
you're
you get people, like, they can't, their jobs, they're not getting an increased wage, right?
yeah,
So,
those aren't going up.
right. So you're running into this issue where, and that's where, like, if you're an investor, you really have to market your property to attract the right type of tenant. That's what I mentioned earlier, because, there are working professionals out there that aren't ready to pull the trigger and buy a house yet because of interest rates, but they do have the income coming in where they can afford, a higher end rental. So it's kind of, you got to find a balance, and you got to be willing to, based on the quality of your rental and your unit, you have to accept the right. You have to be you know understanding of the type of tenant that can actually occupy your unit. So, like,
And
I
you
guess what I'm trying to say is the quality of the tenant, right?
and you mentioned it too with investors wanting to buy properties. I've talked to a lot of investors, and a lot of investors of clients of mine. They've kind of said it's hard for them to do that right now, because especially if they want to do Airbnb, and like every municipality is cracking down on it. The government has it under their radar that they want to do something about it this year, because they want to bail out their hotel friends, and they want hotels to kind of flourish a little bit more. So a lot of people just go, well, if I can't Airbnb this, Airbnb has almost become a thing where, like, before it was like a money printer, like literally a money tree. People literally could, like, they were making loads and loads of money, especially like good vacation rentals, like up in Muskoka and like Rice Lake and stuff like that. People could just print money. And now it's like, I get, like, you have to sanction it in some way, but again, they're almost going so dramatic that it's not even viable for people to even make money from it. It's costing them money, and why are they going to own something if it's going to cost them money at the end of the day? So that is a big problem for people that want to use properties as, like I said, Airbnb, Verbo, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's concerning, because especially when you look at areas like Muskoka, those are tourist areas. They should not be impacted by what the government wants to do with. Yeah, I fine. If you want to say Hamilton, Toronto, you want to crack down on that because of the housing crisis, fine. But like, to crack down on areas like Muskoka, Rice Lake, Wasaga Beach, um,
Crystal
um,
Beach.
Grand Bend, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's just like you're targeting the wrong people. Those people are not the ones that are causing the housing market. No one's going to buy a house in Grand Bend. It's just not happening, right? Like, you want to go there for a little bit of a getaway. You kind of don't want to live there, right? It's I just find that kind of the magnification on the problem is kind of in the wrong area at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. It's the government, they obviously, there's a housing crisis, like you mentioned. The government wants more units available for long-term leasing because there's not enough housing with the amount of people there are, the amount of immigration, people that they're bringing to the country. And the government takes a long time to do things, right? Just because of how it operates and how the
Yeah.
system is. So we have this housing crisis, and instead of, it's just taken them so long to realize they need to build more housing. So
And
it's
what
kind
have
of
they
a
really done?
band-aid. Yeah, it's a band-aid on the
Like, seriously,
situation.
they've
Yeah.
done press conferences to say we're doing this and that, but like, honestly, what have they actually done to do anything? Even in the last 2 years, like, seriously, in the last 2 years, ask the question of what has really been done, right? It's really a whole lot of nothing. Like, I don't see anything being built. I don't see. I don't really see a whole lot going on, right? They can do as many. What do they like to call the photo shoots? The
Yeah.
To just look like they're doing something, but there's actually not really much going on right now. So it's just like, yes, you can talk the talk, but are you actually going to walk the walk at the end of the day?
Yeah, and it's, investors are taking the hit, right? There should be more, they should be incentivized to do more of what they're doing, to purchase properties, to build multi-units, right? Convert them. But instead they're being penalized. And, investors are providing a lot of the housing to people, right? Like, I rent, and I can afford rent because I live in a smaller unit. It's just what I need right now while I'm building my real estate business. But there's tons of opportunity there if they just kind of, again, almost reward investors for doing the building, because it's
And they're
taking them
not
so
right now.
long. Yeah, it's taking them so long. It's unfortunate. And so now they're penalizing investors, and it's just going to hurt them in the end. Like, it's not going to work out.
Yeah,
So,
and even builders, like, they're not incentivizing builders to do anything either. They're putting more red tape on everything. You need a permit for this. The permit takes 12 months to get. Well, like, why? Like, we're going to be losing money for 12 months getting this permit. Like, why do we want to build a homes in that area or that municipality now because these red tapes, right? So it just all comes down to, and again, the government talks about all this stuff, eliminating the red tape, but I don't see any eliminating yet. I still see they're basically saying they're going to eliminate it, and then you have the guy, like, they walk off stage and it's still like the red tape that goes up behind them, right?
Yeah.
So it's, like I said, talk the talk, but like, can we walk the walk at some point? Like, we need to, words are words, but they need to put those words into action almost.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, we'll see with the whole Airbnb thing, like that, that's gone into play as of January 1st. So I'm in Hamilton. So if it's not your primary residence, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have to get a license. You're going to have to prove it's your primary residence. And if you don't, then you can't run an Airbnb out of it. So I know that's just recently happened in Brantford. It's making its way here. So yeah.
Brampton.
Brantford. They just
Brantford too.
Brampton
did
the
same
came
thing.
down. Yeah. So, I mean, it, like, you kind of hear it. You're like, what, how are they going to go about it? But it's like, okay, well, now you have to get a license. And so you have to prove it's your primary residence, essentially. So, it's going to take a lot of Airbnbs offline. That's for sure.
100%. Again, and I don't disagree with doing it in bigger cities because bigger cities people actually live in, but doing it in like tourist areas that really don't have a whole lot of impact, like people aren't living. Again, I'm not saying no one lives in Muskoka, but if you actually take a poll, like most of them are seasonal residents. They don't live there all the time. So to take those opportunities away from people to go up there and then pump money into their economy from, May till October, that hurts, right? You're taking that away. People go out. People spend a week in there with their family. How many times do you think they go out to dinner? Probably most of those nights. How many times do you think they go shopping? Probably at least once or twice during that trip, right? All these things that we don't really kind of see that are directly impacting Airbnb. Again, you're going to see a lot less economic growth because people just aren't. I don't want to go to a hotel if I'm going to go to Muskoka. Like, that's not what I want to do. On top of that, there's like no hotels in Muskoka. There's a resort in Huntsville, like Deerhurst. But again, some people don't want that resort feeling, right? They just want to be in their own little area. But again, and if you look at the hotel side, there's not really a lot of hotels in that area. And if there are, like, a hotel's a hotel, right? I'm not saying they're bad. It's just, like I said, would you rather have a hotel or would you rather have a chateau on the lake? Like, I think we can all answer that pretty easily. So yeah, it just, I don't know. I think, like I said earlier, I think the magnifying glass is on the wrong sector. And yeah, maybe you're going to have to make different rules for certain populations of the province and of the country, right? And it's just, I don't know how we'll end up there. We will at one point, but it's going to be, the journey will be interesting. That's for sure. The journey will be interesting.
Yeah. Well, Sarah and Aisha, I mean, you know the two of them, right? Sarah Aisha Sarah Larby and Aisha Gavani, like, they started a company called Midterm Rental Properties. And so it's a pretty interesting concept. They're having some pretty good success with it as well. So, midterms are in that area where it's not long term and it's not short term. So what they've done is they've put together a team of people. And so they actually call and get, these companies, these businesses, these service companies, right, traveling tradesmen, and they build these relationships with them. Newcomer immigrants starting entrepreneurs who are starting companies here in Canada, or they've expanded from a different country. They've expanded from Saudi Arabia, for example, and they're building these relationships with them, and they're placing these like professionals in investor units all over Canada. So it's, there's a lot going on with Airbnb, but there's been a ton of opportunity as well. So I actually took their midterm rental course, and that's why I'm pretty familiar with the company. And because I was going to be running my own Airbnb. And so I took this course, and it helped me with my short-term rental as well. But yeah, so this midterm rental course, essentially, like, you can, get these corporate clients to sign a guest term and stay in your unit anywhere from 1 to 6 months, 9 months, and the company's paying for it. So it's like a working professional, right? You're not going to have, it's going to reduce, potential squatter, or your chance of getting a potential squatter, or someone who's not going to pay because the company's paying. So even during like bad, struggling times comes a lot of opportunity. And it's been interesting um, to see that be successful. They've actually given me a few midterm rental clients as well for my unit, and that's helped out. That's brought me cash flow for the months that it's been slower for Airbnb.
That's
So
great.
yeah.
And then you know what? The one thing I always say is either you evolve or you kind of get left behind, right? Like if again, we can sit here all day and hum and haw about how Airbnbs are being targeted and they're not profitable right now. But again, like you have to kind of roll with the punches for now and evolve. And like I said, if you don't evolve, you're going to get left behind. A lot of people can just sit there and complain, but you got to do something about it, right? And if that's the market you can get into and kind of fill in the little gaps here and there, then great, why not, right? I think a lot of people would do that, especially like, for example, like the oil fields out in Alberta, right? Like how many times do they send people out there for 3-4 months and then they never come back, right? Like that's a great opportunity. I know a lot of tradespeople that do that. They'll go somewhere else, even in Ontario. They'll go out to like a project for like a month, right? They need to be somewhere. They might not have hotels there, right? So you can kind of get into those kind of properties where people or might have issues with Airbnb, or like, what, it might just not be a great rental area. So they can get these midterm people that come in and are there for a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then, like I said, you kind of move on to the next person.
Yeah. And they actually brought me someone from, like, I can't say the company, but because there's like, like disclosure, privacy contracts we signed. But essentially, like, yeah, they brought me a corporate client for 2 months, and they wanted to extend, but I actually had some Airbnb bookings, so they placed that person in another one of their units. So it's you gotta you can't just stick to the rules. You gotta be a little bit creative, right? And we're providing temporary housing for people, and so that's a solution for these companies as well. So we can help them save money, because hotels can be pretty expensive, right? Like they can
Yep,
be,
they are.
and you don't have a kitchen, you might not have a yard. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know. I know a lot of hotels have been going to more like that studio vibe where you kind of have that little like kitchenette, they almost call it. But again,
Yes.
it's not an actual kitchen. It's just
No.
kind of there, right? And a lot of them don't have ovens. They might have a little stove top, but you can't really like cook or bake anything, right? So again, I think that it is a good step to creativity to be doing these kind of things, because again, midterm rentals, before I really met you guys and went to the networking event, I really didn't even know this kind of market existed. And now, like, I talk to a lot of clients, like, yeah, I kind of want to get into this because my Airbnb business is really slow, or like we can't be doing this anymore. Long-term rentals, again, there's the challenges there with like squatting and tenants not wanting to get out, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll give this a try, right? So it's all about, again, diversifying your business and seeing how things work. You should always try something once at least to kind of see how things are, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work for you. But again, one thing that works for you might not work for me, right? So it's all about seeing what formula you kind of come up with, and if you have the winning formula, and stick to it. Don't fix something that's not broken, right?
Yeah. And be creative. I think that's one thing I learned, is especially taking the course. Again, it's all online. Sarah and Aisha teach it, and just makes you think a little bit out of the box. But it does give you some processes and structures to put in place, and so that you can be successful in running a midterm rental.
What do you think 2024 is going to bring to the real estate market? Do you think there's going to be a whole lot of change? Do you think it's going to just kind of go with the flow? Like, what are your thoughts, obviously being in this industry a little more directly than I am?
Yeah. I think if I could speak for myself, I think it's going to be a good year. I've been working at building my business up, and I'm kind of seeing, you know, I'm seeing when you work hard for things and you start to see it pay off. I'm seeing that with leads come in now, which is good. But when it comes to real estate investing, you can see some people are over leveraged, some people grew really quickly, other people grew over time, so they're not taking maybe as hard of a hit. I think that, until interest rates go down a little bit, it's going to be tough. But I think we're still in for a bit of a tough time, I think, for half the year, myself included. Like, even I do have things down the pipeline, but I think it's still just going to be slow for everyone. But at the same time, like, that's not a reason to, like, there's always opportunity during those down times and those slow times as well. And
Yep.
so that's where, again, you got to get creative. You got to find ways to, get leads and meet people. And maybe because it's slower, now it's more of an opportunity to build up your brand and to go and network and to connect with other people you maybe wouldn't have had time to do that before because you were so busy just working, right? It's
Like
it's
coming
great
out to
when
the
you're
networking group.
yeah, like it's great when if you're a real estate agent, you're, negotiating a deal. You're not really getting to know that agent. You're just kind of like, getting the deal done, right? Getting it across the finish line. Whereas if you're not really doing a lot of that, you have more time, you're going to these events, the investor and entrepreneur events, you're actually meeting people that, you might end up doing business with or partnering with, 6 months down the road. Like, I met you and I was busy working, with investors and entrepreneurs. Like, at the event, I was doing, like, helping out with name tags. And then, you guys were a sponsor, and then we didn't really know each other. But then I over time, I felt, okay, like, these guys, they're committed. They're coming to every event. They're presenting. They know their stuff. And then I had some clients to send you. Right now, all of a sudden, we're doing a podcast, and I'm
Yep.
referring people to you, and then you donated the gift card, and it's awesome, right? Like, that's great.
It
So
all comes full circle.
yeah, like, that's opportunity there. So I think but it takes time, right? Like, you gotta deal with the highs and the lows, I guess, of real estate, to be able to handle it and power through.
Yep. Yep, I think that's with every industry, right? I think every industry is kind of seeing, there was a time in every industry that it was, like I said, you're printing money. Before you could sell a car, you were just printing money at that point. You could sell, sell, sell. You could sell 10 cars a day. It was so easy. Insurance was the same thing. You could just sell insurance left, right, and center. You could sell homes left, right, and center, right? And then kind of COVID hit, and like everything kind of really changed, right? And we've seen this world of marketing and social media marketing and really building up people's brands. Like, that is so important now. Like, people, like, even for myself, when I pick on who I want to like do business with and like who I even go and shop at, like, I'd rather go to someone that has like an actual, like, I can go on and see that they're actually like active and doing stuff. The people that I like go just like, because we're looking at homes now, I go and like look at their like realtor site, and I'm like, they don't even do anything. Like, they're just doing nothing. It's like, okay, like, how engaged are they actually really, right? Are they just selling houses just to sell houses? Or like, are they actually like there to like be an actual information mecca and actually know what's going on, right? So those are all like really important. I know they're really important things to me, maybe not to other people, but I know a lot of people I talk to, like, that's important to them as well. And a big piece of their decision making is, hey, like, are these people actually engaged, or are they just here to be here, right?
Do you think that 100%? Yeah. Do you think that with it being 2024 and like how things have been in 2023, right? Do you think it's a good year for you and your girlfriend to purchase a property? Or do you think you should hold off for a bit? Like, you said you were looking a bit. Like, what are your plans?
Good question. If it was up to me, I would probably want to wait a little bit more, just because there are other kind of priorities I want. I'm one of those people that want to be completely debt free. So I'd rather not go into debt with a little bit of, like, again, student debt. I went to school. Like, it's, again, it is what it is. It's not like I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of it, but still, I'm just, that's the way I am. And again, I'm seeing the market the way it's going. The problem is, again, there's the con of, yes, if you wait, well, yeah, interest rates might go down, but then prices are going to go back up. So you're flip flopping, right? You're doing this with rates and this with prices, but then if you wait, it just does this. So it's like, well, again, what's the best thing to do, right? And I think that's just where we need to be. Like, what can we really afford to do? We've looked at possibly also doing like a tenant in the basement, because again, like, we're both working professionals. Like, I work from home, she does too a little bit, but then she's at the office sometimes as well. So even just having like another working professional down there would be totally fine. Or maybe like a family member. Again, those are things that we're all open to. So I don't know. It's almost like you're never going to find the perfect answer to it, but it's like, what's the best answer we can have for our certain given moment, right? So the other thing is too, she grew up in a rural area on a farm, right? So like, to get her into the city is going to be tough, right? So I don't know. It's our obviously future plans is always to own actual like land and property, so she can do her like horses and her animals and stuff, because she's really into that stuff. She's got me into that. I'll be honest, the horse side I have no interest in. I'll just stand to the back and kind of wave at them and maybe pet them a little bit, but the horses can be her thing. I'll do the rest of the animals. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think there's a perfect answer. We'll have to kind of see, like, with talking to professionals and some mortgage brokers and stuff, kind of seeing, how far can we leverage ourselves before it becomes too much, right? We also don't want to be house poor, right? I want to be able to go out and do things. I want to be able to go to golf. I want to be able to go to the cottage whenever I feel like going, right? I don't want to just be stuck at home being like, oh, we can't do anything because we have this stupid house that we're trying to pay for, and it's basically we're spending all of our money at it, right? So we're just trying to be smart about it realistically. And again, I don't know what that perfect answer looks like now, but again, over time, I guess we'll have to just kind of see what our best options are, really. If it's this year, if it's not, maybe next year, right? Who knows?
Yeah, I can relate. I completely understand. Like, house hacking, I think nowadays you have to make money, right? Depending on like your salary or what you're making with your job, you need extra income coming in because everything's just so expensive.
Oh yeah.
So house hacking is a great option. Like, for me, I've considered like, okay, maybe I like, when I'm ready, like I purchase a property, like a multi-unit or like a single family or something, but like I actually keep renting. And like my job covers certain costs, and then I have like the renter covering the mortgage, just so at least the multi-unit, hopefully you're cash flowing a little bit, right? Depending on the deal that you get, the location. But it's like, okay, I don't know if I could, doesn't make sense for me to potentially just move in, when, I need more income, right? So, and I'll need more income in the future. Prices just keep going up regardless.
And it's hard on a single income, right? Like, like anyone that I talk to, it's like they can't do it on their own. They either have to do it with help from family, like partners together going in on things, because then they can do a double income family at that point. But again, like as a single income, it's tough. Like, it's almost virtually impossible. Like, I had friends that did it before COVID, and they worked their butts off to get to where they are, and they were just the perfect time. They did it right before the whole boom. They got in. They have tons of equity now in their homes, and they're just laughing at this point. But again, you know what?
Awesome.
Some people always don't get that lucky, right? And it's again, I think now, if they were to do that in today's world, I don't think they'd be able to do what they did maybe 5-6 years ago and go in on a single income. They'd either have to have help or have two incomes to be able to afford things. And again, me and my girlfriend do make really good money, but it's still like $100,000 now is nothing. Even if we both make that, it's still, that's like the average realistically for a double family home, right? It's tough. And like I said, are things going to get better? We hope, but again, we don't know what the future holds, right? we didn't think COVID was happening. And again, our system wasn't perfect back then, but I think COVID kind of pushed us off that cliff of, we were teetering over that cliff for a long time, and COVID just basically like was the last straw in the whole, our kind of how society ran, right? And you can see, yeah, COVID was bad, but there was a lot of things that COVID kind of, we came out of COVID and changed a lot of things, because we were like, well, that was not working, and it was not working for a long time, and COVID kind of just uncovered how much that really didn't work, and just like I said, it kind of accelerated the process of saying, hey, this is not working, we need to change. So yeah, it's 2024 will be an interesting year. Like I said, we're only into February realistically, but again, there's still a lot of time to see how things kind of pan out. And I think spring we'll see spring do this, and summer, and then fall kind of do this, but then winter kind of do that even more. But again, we're in a very interesting, actually, next 12 months, or maybe even 18 months, because we got the American election, which again indirectly impacts how Canada operates, and then we have our election the year after, right? So those are two monumental kind of changes we're going to go through in the next 2 years, basically. So we'll have to see how that really impacts, because I think that's going to be the driving factor. I don't think a whole lot will happen in 2024 in terms of stabilizing. I think once the election happens and you see who gets into the White House, you'll see things start changing. And then again, who gets into Parliament in Canada come next year, then I think things will start really changing. Who knows? Maybe changing for the worse, changing for the better. We'll have to see how those pan out, but I guess vote and find out is really my opinion on that then.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. And yeah, it's just, you know what? It's time to get creative. It's time to figure things out and do things differently, because it's expensive and certain things aren't working. So I'm excited to see, the opportunities that come up in 2024.
100%. I always like to kind of end things off with your kind of takeaway from this whole conversation. I think that kind of gets a lot of people's like brains working a little bit to kind of end things off. So if you can kind of leave people with your one kind of takeaway from this whole real estate, renting, investing, all that kind of stuff, what would you kind of leave with people in their final thought?
Well, I think maybe this is like a little bit different than what you're expecting for me to say, but I think it's networking is important, because I was able to meet your insurance company, and you and Braden have been super supportive of with the events, the investor and entrepreneur events. And because of that, I feel like I've been able to service my clients better, because I was able to put them in touch with you. Some of them moved from out of province here, and you helped them out. You got them a quote. They went with you. They felt comfortable. I might, help them purchase a house later on down the line. They had a good experience with you. That's what this job is really about, is we are, meeting people. We're testing out the waters. We're seeing if we can work together, and then we're providing solutions for people, and we're helping them out, and we're getting a job done. And that's really what I've taken away. And that's why I've enjoyed this podcast with you. And I guess with conversation today, things are getting tougher out there. Overall, there's a lot going on, but with that being said, there's also a ton of opportunity. And like I said, I'm excited for what 2024 has to bring.
100%. Again, I love hearing that, because I find a lot there should be more power teams. That's what I like to call them, right? Especially with industries that are so directly connected, like us and realtors and mortgage brokers and lawyers and stuff. Like if you just had like a team of just people that you could trust to go to, which again, I like to build, because again, I don't like to refer people to people that I can't trust, don't have the same values as me, all that kind of stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, and this might be a little bit like extreme, but I want people to go to someone and buy a car, buy a home, do financial decisions. And I basically want them to feel like they're talking to me at the same time, because I want them to be dealt with and be personable and actually feel like they're an important like part of their decision making. And again, if we had more of these, what I like to call power teams, I think things would just go a lot smoothly, especially because, again, I work with a lot of mortgage brokers. I work with a lot of lawyers. I talk to them all the time. And like, there's some times where like, I'm like, man, I just wish that we just work together more, because these processes with clients and getting things done for people would just take so much less time. It would be so less stressful for clients to get things done if we just all had someone that we could go to, that we could just work directly with all the time. And I'm not saying you have to go to the one person, but like, again, there's certain people that I'll go to. And again, there's partners that I've had in the past and they haven't worked out, because you know what? Like I straight up had someone, personal story. I straight up had someone from a dealership before. I had a client that literally was ready to like go drop cash left, right, and center at a dealership. And the person literally told me, I'm too busy to help that client. Sorry, tell him to go somewhere else. I went, oh, and I never worked with that person again. So it's just, those are just not I don't ever, like, you should never be saying that to a client and just saying, sorry, you're not worth my time, go away. Like, that's just, it was not appropriate in my eyes. And again, like I want to work with people like you that are respectful, professional, they treat every client the exact same way, regardless if it's a rental, regardless if it's a first home buyer, regardless if it's an investor. I want them to be dealt with exactly the same way as if you're dealing with your mother, your father, regardless of who it is. Again, that's who I like to deal with, because that shows like you actually respect me and you're respecting the people that I'm sending you.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I mean, yeah. You said it perfectly there. Like, it's so important. Customer service is so important, and being able to trust people is very important. And providing a solution for people is even more important.
Yeah. But I think that kind of wraps things up. Again, I really appreciate you coming on, taking your evening to chat with us for almost an hour now. And like I said, getting me out of my comfort zone, because I forgot to mention this, not only did we do this for the first time in the evening, this is the first video podcast we've done. So I guess we did history last week I had 6 people on the podcast last week, and then you've also made history this week, because now we're doing it with a video. So congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm pumped that we got to, do it on a video. I feel like it's a little bit, I mean, audio is good too, but it's a little bit more, interactive this way. And I'll be excited to, hear your guests, on coming with the following weeks. So, thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like I said, I really appreciate you taking your time. I know you're obviously super busy like everyone is. So time is money and it's valuable. So thank you for taking the last hour of your night with me. And again, thank you for everyone for tuning in this week. When is it coming out, Alison?
Next Tuesday at 10 a.m.
Perfect. So tune in all your streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, basically everything that you can stream your stuff on, we're on. So tune in next week, and thank you guys for tuning in to this month's episode of The Broker Breakdown.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on. Have a good night.